When we talk about aging, most people immediately think about wrinkles, gray hair, or slower metabolism. But one of the most overlooked yet most devastating changes is something you don't always notice until it's too late: muscle loss. This condition has a medical term: sarcopenia. And here's what's shocking: by the time you reach 80 years old, the average person has lost nearly 40% of their muscle mass compared to when they were young. Imagine that for a second. Almost half of the tissue that keeps you strong, mobile, and independent gone. Now, let me ask you a question. Why do some people in their 70s and 80s still look vibrant, strong, and energetic, while others the same age struggle to get out of a chair, need a walker, or are constantly fatigued? The difference is often not genetics, it's the condition of their muscles. A sarcopenia is often called the silent disability because it creeps up slowly. You don't notice it at first. Maybe you feel a little weaker climbing stairs, or maybe carrying groceries feels heavier than before. But over years, these little declines add up, and suddenly you find yourself at risk of falling, struggling with balance, or unable to maintain the lifestyle you once enjoyed. Here's the hook. Most people think this is just normal aging. They assume it's inevitable. But it's not. Sarcopenia is not simply a part of getting older. It's a condition driven by very specific changes in the body that we can influence. Once you understand what's actually happening, you can take steps to reverse it, or at least dramatically slow it down. So what's really going on? Muscles are not just chunks of meat attached to your bones. They are living, dynamic tissues that are constantly breaking down and rebuilding. Every single day, your body is performing a balancing act, breaking down old muscle fibers while simultaneously repairing and building new ones. When you're young, this balance leans toward growth. Your hormones are higher, your digestion is stronger, and your body is primed to build. But as you age, the scales tip. Your ability to synthesize new muscle declines while the rate of breakdown increases. The result: a steady loss of muscle over time. One of the main drivers of sarcopenia is something called anabolic resistance. Think of it as your muscles becoming deaf to the signals that normally tell them to grow. When you eat protein, amino acids should trigger muscle protein synthesis. But in older adults, those signals don't get through as strongly. It's like trying to turn up the volume on a radio, but the speakers are worn out. You just don't get the same sound. This is why many seniors can eat protein-rich meals and still continue to lose muscle. Another major factor is digestion. As we get older, stomach acid tends to decline. Stomach acid is essential for breaking down protein into absorbable amino acids. Without enough stomach acid, you can eat the best steak, chicken, or fish, but your body can't extract the full benefit. On top of that, pancreatic enzymes, which also aid protein digestion, decrease with age. This double hit means the very fuel you need for muscle maintenance is slipping through your fingers. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Muscle is not just about strength, it's about survival. Your muscles act as a reservoir of amino acids, which your body taps into during times of stress, illness, or fasting. If you get sick, your immune system actually pulls amino acids from your muscles to build immune proteins and antibodies. So if you've already lost a significant amount of muscle, your body has less to draw on, and your recovery is slower. This is why hospital stays are so much more dangerous for older adults, because their muscle reserve is depleted, making it harder for their bodies to bounce back. And here's another hook: muscle is also your biggest metabolic engine. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest, and the better your body handles blood sugar. This is critical, because poor blood sugar control is at the root of many age-related diseases, including diabetes, heart disease, and even Alzheimer's. In fact, researchers are now calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because of its strong link to insulin resistance. Muscle is your greatest weapon against insulin resistance because it acts like a sponge, soaking up excess glucose and lowering blood sugar naturally. Lose muscle and you lose that sponge. So let me paint the bigger picture here. Sarcopenia doesn't just make you weaker. It sets off a chain reaction that affects nearly every system in your body. It raises your risk of falls and fractures, which are a leading cause of disability in seniors. It lowers your metabolism, making weight gain easier and fat loss harder. It weakens your immune system, slowing recovery from illness. And it even accelerates cognitive decline by worsening blood sugar regulation. In other words, sarcopenia is one of the hidden drivers of aging itself. Now, here's the part most people don't realize: is sarcopenia often starts much earlier than you think. Some research shows that muscle mass begins declining as early as your 30s and accelerates after 50. By the time you feel the weakness in your 60s, the process has been underway for decades. That's why prevention and early intervention are so critical. But the good news is, it's never too late. Studies show that even people in their 80s and 90s can regain muscle mass with the right nutrition and exercise. Let me give you a powerful example. In one study, older adults who had already experienced muscle loss were put on a resistance training program just 2 to 3 times a week. Within 12 weeks, they saw measurable increases in muscle size and strength, despite being well past the age where most people think muscle growth is possible. That tells you something important. Your body doesn't forget how to build muscle. It just needs the right signals and the right fuel. And this is where diet becomes so essential. If you're only focusing on protein quantity without addressing digestion, inflammation, and nutrient cofactors, you're missing the bigger picture. Muscle needs not just amino acids, but also minerals like magnesium and potassium, vitamins like D and B complex, and anti-inflammatory compounds to keep the environment inside the muscle healthy enough to grow. Without these, the whole process stalls. So if you're over 60 and you're noticing weakness, fatigue, or slower recovery, don't dismiss it as just getting old. That's the trap most people fall into. Recognize it for what it is, the early signs of sarcopenia. And once you see it for what it is, you can take action. Because remember, your body is always rebuilding. It just needs the right raw materials and the right stimulation. When most people hear about muscle loss, the first solution that comes to mind is protein. Doctors, nutritionists, but even advertisements all repeat the same line: eat more protein. And at first glance, that makes sense. Muscle is made of protein, so logically, if you're losing muscle, then eating more protein should fix it, right? But here's the surprising truth. Especially as you age, simply adding more protein to your diet does not guarantee you'll maintain or rebuild muscle. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of nutrition for seniors, and it's a big reason why so many people continue to lose strength and mass even though they're eating what they believe is the right diet. Let me ask you this, have you ever noticed older adults who consume large amounts of protein? Maybe they drink whey shakes every day, eat plenty of eggs, chicken, or fish, yet they still seem frail and weak. That's not because protein is useless. It's because the body's ability to use protein changes dramatically with age. If you're over 60, you are not absorbing, digesting, and utilizing protein the same way you did when you were 20 or 30. And that's the key most people overlook. The first major factor is digestion. In order for protein to build muscle, it has to be broken down into amino acids. That starts in the stomach with hydrochloric acid. Stomach acid is like the scissors that cut long chains of protein into smaller, more manageable pieces. But here's the problem: as you age, your stomach acid production declines. By the time you're in your 60s, you could be producing less than half the amount of stomach acid you had in your youth. That means even if you eat a steak packed with protein, your stomach might not be able to break it down properly. The protein doesn't get fully digested, the amino acids don't get absorbed, and much of it simply passes through the system unused. That's why so many seniors complain about bloating, indigestion, or heaviness after eating high-protein meals. It's not just discomfort, it's a sign their body isn't processing protein efficiently. And it doesn't stop there. After the stomach, protein digestion depends heavily on pancreatic enzymes. These enzymes further break down proteins into amino acids your small intestine can absorb. But just like stomach acid, enzyme production also declines with age. So now you've got two major digestive bottlenecks: less acid, fewer enzymes. And the result is that a good portion of the protein you consume never actually makes it to your muscles. Here's another layer to the problem, and this is critical. Even if you do manage to digest protein and absorb amino acids, your muscles themselves may not respond as effectively to those signals. This is called anabolic resistance. Think of it like this, When you were young, amino acids acted like a powerful switch that flipped on muscle growth instantly. As you get older, that switch becomes harder to turn on. The same dose of amino acids that once triggered growth now produces a much weaker effect. This is why older adults often require not just more protein, but better quality, more bioavailable protein that their body can actually use. Without addressing anabolic resistance, you can eat protein all day long and see very little change in muscle mass. Now let me hook you with this thought. If protein alone worked, we wouldn't see such high rates of sarcopenia in populations that consume plenty of protein. Think about it. People are eating eggs, dairy, meat, fish, and protein powders, yet age-related muscle loss continues to be one of the most widespread conditions globally. Clearly, the answer isn't just eat more protein. It's about making that protein work for you. And here's where things get interesting. Protein metabolism requires cofactors, nutrients that act as helpers in the process. For example, vitamin B6 is essential for amino acid metabolism. Magnesium plays a role in protein synthesis. Zinc is critical for stomach acid production. Without these nutrients, the entire process of breaking down and rebuilding muscle stalls, no matter how much protein you're eating. It's like having all the bricks you need to build a house, but no workers, no tools, and no cement. The materials are there, but the house never gets built. Inflammation is another hidden factor. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which is extremely common as we age, interferes with muscle protein synthesis. When your body is in a constant state of inflammation, it diverts resources away from building and toward repair. Imagine trying to build new structures on a construction site while the foundation is still cracked and unstable. That's what inflammation does inside your muscles. So if you're eating protein, but also dealing with inflammation from processed foods, sugar, or hidden conditions, your body may not be able to prioritize muscle building. And then there's the role of insulin. protein doesn't just work in isolation. It often relies on insulin signaling to deliver amino acids into muscle cells. But here's the catch: with age, many people develop insulin resistance. When your cells stop responding properly to insulin, not only does your blood sugar rise, but the delivery of amino acids into muscle tissue becomes impaired. So once again, protein gets stuck in the bloodstream instead of being deposited where it's needed most. Here's another surprising hook: some people actually overconsume protein in an attempt to stop sarcopenia. And this backfires. Excess protein that the body can't use gets converted into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. That spikes blood sugar and insulin, contributing to fat gain and worsening insulin resistance, the very conditions that accelerate muscle loss. So, the idea of endlessly piling on protein shakes or giant servings of meat can actually do more harm than good if the underlying issues aren't addressed. So what's the real answer? It's about improving the utilization of protein, not just the amount. That means supporting stomach acid with things like apple cider vinegar or betaine hydrochloride if you're deficient, making sure your body has enough digestive enzymes, and ensuring your diet includes the vitamins and minerals required for protein metabolism. It means reducing inflammation by cutting out refined carbs and processed foods. It means improving insulin sensitivity through intermittent fasting, exercise, and nutrient-dense foods. And it also means incorporating protein sources that are more bioavailable and easier to digest, like eggs, fish, and certain plant-based options such as quinoa, which provide a complete amino acid profile. Let me put it this way: protein is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It's only one piece of the puzzle. If you only focus on that one piece, you'll always fall short. But if you create the right internal environment, acidic enough to digest, nutrient-rich enough to support metabolism, insulin-sensitive enough to transport amino acids, and inflammation-free enough to allow growth, then even a modest amount of protein can go much further than massive quantities ever could. And that's the real secret that most people miss. It's not about eating more, it's about absorbing more, using more, and converting more into actual muscle tissue. That's why protein alone isn't enough. It's the orchestra of digestion, hormones, nutrients, and cellular sensitivity that truly determines whether your body builds or wastes away. When most people think about protein, they immediately picture animal foods: steak, chicken, fish, or eggs. And yes, these are powerful sources of protein. But here's the fascinating part: in the plant kingdom, very few foods can claim the title of a complete protein. Most plant proteins are incomplete, meaning they are missing one or more of the essential amino acids your body cannot make on its own. Without those missing pieces, your muscles simply cannot rebuild efficiently. But there is one exception that stands out, and that is quinoa. And here's the surprising hook: this ancient grain doesn't just provide protein, it provides the full spectrum of all 9 essential amino acids in the right balance, making it incredibly unique among plants. Think about this for a moment. If you're over 60, your body is already struggling with anabolic resistance, poor digestion, and declining ability to process protein. That means you need a source of protein that is not only nutrient-dense, but also easier to digest and provides everything your muscles require without gaps. Quinoa steps in as a kind of nutritional bridge. Unlike beans or rice, which each have missing amino acids, quinoa is complete. It gives your body the raw materials it desperately needs to combat muscle loss, all in one package. Now, some people dismiss quinoa as just a trendy health food that appeared in the last decade in grocery stores and restaurants. But here's the reality. Quinoa has been cultivated for over 5,000 years, primarily in the Andes Mountains of South America. The Incas called it the mother grain because it sustained their warriors during battles. These were men who required incredible strength and endurance, and they relied on quinoa to fuel them. That should tell us something important. This grain has stood the test of time long before it was ever popularized in the Western world. Here's another hook. Quinoa is not technically even a grain. It's a seed. And that distinction matters because unlike wheat or corn, quinoa is naturally gluten-free and far less irritating to the gut. For seniors who may already have digestive sensitivities, quinoa becomes a safer, more tolerable option. And when we're talking about maximizing nutrition in an older digestive system, tolerance and absorption are everything. But let's dive deeper into why quinoa is so powerful for fighting sarcopenia. When you consume quinoa, you're getting amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine, the branched-chain amino acids that directly stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Leucine, in particular, is like the ignition key for muscle growth. It signals your body to turn on the machinery that builds new muscle fibers. Many plant proteins are deficient in leucine, which is why they fall short compared to animal sources. But quinoa contains enough leucine to actually trigger that process, making it a rare plant food that truly supports muscle rebuilding. And it's not just the amino acids. Quinoa is rich in magnesium, which plays a central role in energy metabolism and muscle contraction. Without magnesium, your muscles simply cannot function properly, and your body cannot synthesize protein efficiently. Quinoa also provides manganese, which supports antioxidant defenses, and B vitamins, which are critical for converting food into usable energy. When you put this together, you start to see that quinoa isn't just a protein source, it's a complete muscle support system. Here's the hook: most people miss protein isn't just about quantity, it's about quality and context. You could eat 40 grams of protein from a low-quality, incomplete plant source and get minimal results, or you could eat a smaller amount of high-quality, complete protein like quinoa and see much greater benefits. This is especially important as you age because your body's efficiency is already compromised. You need every bite to count. Quinoa makes every bite count. Another fascinating property of quinoa is its digestibility. While heavy meats can sit in the stomach and cause discomfort in older adults, quinoa tends to be lighter and easier to break down. That means the amino acids from quinoa are more readily absorbed and available for your muscles to use. And here's something even more interesting. Quinoa contains compounds like quercetin and camphorol, powerful plant antioxidants that reduce inflammation. Remember, chronic inflammation is one of the biggest barriers to muscle growth in older adults. So while quinoa is delivering amino acids, it's also calming the environment inside your muscles, allowing repair and rebuilding to actually take place. Now, some people worry about the carbohydrate content of quinoa, especially if they're trying to keep their blood sugar stable. But here's the hook. Quinoa has a relatively low glycemic index compared to refined grains. That means it doesn't spike blood sugar the way white rice or bread does. And because it comes packaged with fiber, vitamins, and minerals, your body handles it in a much healthier way. In fact, studies show that quinoa consumption can actually improve metabolic markers, support insulin sensitivity, and even aid in weight management. So instead of harming your blood sugar, quinoa may actually help stabilize it, which is critical for preserving muscle mass and preventing diabetes as you age. Let me share an example. In a study of older adults, those who incorporated quinoa into their diets showed improvements not just in muscle markers, but also in functional performance, things like grip strength, walking speed, and balance. These are the exact measures that determine independence in older adults. So we're not just talking about lab results, we're talking about real-life improvements in strength and mobility that can mean the difference between living independently or relying on others for basic tasks. But there's a catch you need to know. Quinoa contains compounds called saponins, which can cause digestive irritation if not removed. This is why it's always important to rinse quinoa thoroughly before cooking. Once rinsed and prepared properly, quinoa becomes an excellent gut-friendly source of nutrition. Unfortunately, many people skip this step and then complain about bloating or discomfort when the problem is not the quinoa itself, but the preparation. So here's the big picture. If you're over 60, your body is desperately trying to hold onto muscle. Every bite of food you eat either helps or hurts that process. Most plant foods simply don't provide the complete spectrum of amino acids required to stimulate muscle growth, and many animal proteins are harder to digest in older digestive systems. The quinoa is one of the rare foods that bridges that gap. It's complete, digestible, anti-inflammatory, and packed with cofactors that support muscle function. That makes it a game changer for seniors fighting sarcopenia. And here's one final hook. While most people think of muscle as only a physical asset, it's actually a longevity asset. The amount of muscle you carry strongly predicts how long and how well you'll live. Every time you include a food like quinoa in your diet, you're not just feeding your muscles. You're feeding your future independence, your energy, and even your brain health. That's the power of choosing the right protein source. Vascular. One of the most overlooked factors when it comes to nutrition and aging is not just what you eat, but how well you digest what you eat. You could have the best diet in the world, filled with high-quality protein, nutrient-dense vegetables, and healthy fats, but if your body cannot break it down and absorb it, it's almost worthless. And here's the hook. Digestion becomes one of the biggest challenges as you age, and this is a major reason why sarcopenia progresses so rapidly in seniors. It's not that older adults aren't eating enough, it's that their bodies aren't extracting what they need from the food they're eating. Think about it this way. Your digestive system is like the engine of your car. When the engine is young and strong, it burns fuel efficiently, delivering maximum power. But as the engine ages, the spark plugs wear down, and the fuel injectors clog and the efficiency drops. Even if you put premium gasoline in the tank, the engine can't fully utilize it. That's what happens in the aging digestive system. You're still putting in fuel, protein, vitamins, minerals, but your body isn't able to burn it as effectively. One of the first areas to decline is stomach acid. Your hydrochloric acid is critical for breaking down protein into amino acids, and it also plays a key role in absorbing minerals like calcium, magnesium, and zinc. Without enough stomach acid, protein molecules remain too large to be absorbed, and those minerals pass through unused. The result is weaker muscles, weaker bones, and a body that is slowly starving at the cellular level, even when food is plentiful. That's why so many seniors feel full but weak. They're eating, but they're not nourishing. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Low stomach acid can actually mimic the symptoms of high stomach acid. Older adults often complain of heartburn or indigestion, and they're put on acid-blocking medications. But in many cases, the problem isn't too much acid, it's too little. Food sits in the stomach longer than it should, begins to ferment, and causes pressure that pushes acid upward. So, acid blockers make the situation worse by further lowering stomach acid, and now the person's ability to digest protein is compromised even more. Imagine how devastating this is for someone already struggling with muscle loss. On top of that, enzyme production in the pancreas also decreases with age. These enzymes are responsible for breaking down fats, carbohydrates, and proteins into absorbable units. Without enough enzymes, food passes through the digestive tract only partially digested, leading to bloating, discomfort, and poor nutrient absorption. So even if you're eating high protein foods, the building blocks never make it into your bloodstream where your muscles can use them. This is where the type of food becomes critical. Heavy, dense animal proteins like steak, pork, or even large portions of chicken can be especially hard for an older digestive system to handle. But they require strong stomach acid and ample enzymes. That's why many seniors feel sluggish or overly full after such meals. And here's where quinoa becomes such a powerful alternative. Because it's lighter, easier to digest, and comes with its own supportive nutrients, Quinoa allows older adults to access amino acids without placing such a heavy burden on their weakened digestive systems. Here's a hook that surprises a lot of people. Digestion is not just about your stomach, it's about your gut bacteria too. As we age, the diversity and health of the gut microbiome tend to decline. This imbalance can interfere with how nutrients are absorbed and even how amino acids are metabolized. Certain bacteria in your gut actually help process and deliver nutrients to your muscles. If your gut microbiome is depleted or overrun with harmful bacteria, you're losing an invisible partner in digestion. Foods like quinoa, which are rich in fiber and plant compounds, can help nourish beneficial bacteria and improve this delicate balance. But digestion doesn't stop at breaking down food. It's also about absorption. The lining of your small intestine has tiny finger-like structures called villi that absorb nutrients. Over time, damage from processed foods, medications, or inflammation can flatten these villi, making nutrient absorption less efficient. Think of it like reducing the surface area of a sponge. It just can't soak up as much. The result is that even when amino acids are available, fewer of them make it into circulation. This is why choosing foods that are gentler on the gut lining, like quinoa, is so valuable for seniors. Now, here's another hook. Have you ever noticed that some older adults eat relatively small meals but still maintain good energy and strength, while others seem to eat plenty but remain weak and frail? The difference isn't the quantity of food, it's the quality of digestion. Those who can efficiently break down and absorb nutrients will thrive on less food, while those with poor digestion can waste away despite a full plate at every meal. This is the hidden variable that explains so much of the difference in how people age. And here's something else to consider. The digestive decline that comes with aging doesn't just affect muscles. It affects hormones too. Many of the raw materials for hormones, like cholesterol and amino acids, depend on good digestion and absorption. If your body cannot process fats and proteins effectively, your hormone levels drop, further reducing muscle growth and repair. It's a vicious cycle. Poor digestion leads to weak muscles. Weak muscles lead to poor metabolic health, and poor metabolic health further weakens digestion. So, the solution isn't just to eat more, it's to eat smarter. That means choosing foods that are easier to digest, naturally anti-inflammatory, and rich in cofactors that assist digestion. Quinoa fits all of these categories. Because it's a complete protein, your body doesn't need to combine it with other foods to get all the essential amino acids. Because it's lighter, your stomach acid and enzymes don't have to work as hard to break it down. And because it's rich in magnesium and B vitamins, it supports the very processes required for energy production and protein metabolism. In short, quinoa is a digestive shortcut for older adults. But let me leave you with this thought-provoking hook. The real battle for muscle health isn't fought in the gym, it's fought in the gut. You could lift weights every day, but if your digestion is compromised, your muscles won't grow. On the other hand, if you restore your digestive function and choose foods your body can actually use, you can see noticeable improvements in muscle mass and strength, even without extreme exercise routines. That's how powerful digestion really is. One of the biggest obstacles to building and maintaining muscle as you age is not a lack of protein, not even a lack of exercise, but something that silently works against you every single day: inflammation. And here's the hook: inflammation is often invisible. You don't always feel it as pain or swelling. Sometimes it's microscopic, smoldering inside your tissues, disrupting the very processes your muscles need to grow. For seniors, this hidden inflammation is one of the primary reasons sarcopenia accelerates, and it's why so many people continue to lose strength no matter how well they eat or how much they move. Now, let's clarify what inflammation actually is. In its healthy form, inflammation is your body's repair system. If you cut your finger, inflammation rushes in to heal it. That's normal, short-term inflammation. But what happens as we get older is very different. Instead of short bursts of healing inflammation, many people develop chronic, low-grade inflammation that never shuts off. Think of it like a fire alarm that keeps ringing long after the fire is out. This constant signal drains your body, damages tissues, and interferes with critical functions like protein synthesis in your muscles. Why is this such a problem for seniors? Because when inflammation levels are high, your body is forced to prioritize repair over growth. If your immune system is constantly busy putting out fires, it can't devote resources to building muscle fibers. That's why older adults with high inflammation often experience not only muscle loss, but also fatigue, slower recovery from exercise, and even brain fog. The body is spread too thin, trying to fight invisible battles instead of strengthening itself. Here's the surprising hook. Foods can either fuel this inflammation or fight it. The modern diet, especially in Western countries, is loaded with inflammatory foods, refined carbohydrates, sugar, processed seed oils, and even certain proteins that irritate the gut. Over time, these foods trigger the release of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. These cytokines travel through the bloodstream, inflame tissues, and interfere with insulin signaling, which is critical for transporting amino acids into muscle. That means if your diet is full of inflammatory triggers, you could be blocking your own ability to build muscle, even if you're eating high-protein meals. This is where quinoa becomes so interesting. Beyond being a complete protein, quinoa is loaded with compounds that actively reduce inflammation. One of the most powerful is quercetin. Quercetin is a plant flavonoid, a natural antioxidant that has been shown in multiple studies to calm down inflammatory pathways in the body. Think of it like water on a fire. It lowers the intensity of those inflammatory signals and creates a healthier environment for your muscles to recover and grow. What's fascinating is that quercetin doesn't just fight inflammation in your muscles. It also improves blood vessel health, brain function, and immune balance, all of which are critical as you age. Another key nutrient in quinoa is magnesium. Most people think of magnesium as just a mineral for relaxation, but it's actually one of the most important anti-inflammatory nutrients in your body. Low magnesium is strongly linked to higher levels of C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation. Unfortunately, magnesium deficiency is extremely common in seniors, partly because of poor diets, but also because absorption declines with age. When you add quinoa into your diet, you're not only getting protein, you're also replenishing magnesium, which helps lower inflammation and supports over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, many of them directly related to muscle function and energy production. Here's a hook that makes you think differently. Muscle growth isn't just about adding more building blocks, it's about creating the right environment. Imagine trying to build a house on a construction site that's constantly flooding. You can bring in all the bricks and wood you want, but if the ground is soaked and unstable, the house will collapse. Inflammation is that flood. It undermines the foundation. Quinoa, with its unique combination of anti-inflammatory compounds, helps dry up the ground so the building process can move forward. And let's not forget about oxidative stress, which often goes hand in hand with inflammation. As we age, free radicals accumulate in the body, damaging cells, proteins, and even DNA. This oxidative stress triggers more inflammation, creating a vicious cycle. Antioxidants are the key to breaking this cycle. Quinoa is rich not only in quercetin, but also in camphorol and vitamin E, all of which act as antioxidants that neutralize free radicals before they can cause damage. By lowering oxidative stress, the quinoa reduces the inflammatory burden and frees up your body's resources for muscle repair. Another overlooked aspect of inflammation is its effect on mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells. Inflammation can damage mitochondria, lowering your energy production. And without energy, your muscles cannot contract properly or rebuild effectively. The quinoa provides nutrients like manganese and B vitamins that directly support mitochondrial function. This means it's not just helping you reduce inflammation, it's helping you restore the energy your muscles need to respond to exercise and protein intake. Here's a practical example. Many older adults complain about delayed recovery after even light exercise. They say, if I go for a walk, I'm sore for 2 days. If I try to lift something, I feel wiped out. That's inflammation at work. The muscles are not just repairing tears from activity. They're fighting an uphill battle against chronic inflammation that keeps them in a constant state of stress. By incorporating anti-inflammatory foods like quinoa, you reduce that background noise, vascular, allowing the muscles to recover faster and more completely. This means less soreness, more energy, and over time, better strength gains. And here's a powerful hook. Inflammation doesn't just affect muscles, it affects the brain too. Chronic inflammation is strongly linked to cognitive decline, memory loss, and even Alzheimer's disease. So when you eat a food like quinoa, you're not only supporting muscle growth, you're protecting your brain from the very same inflammatory processes. That means sharper thinking, better mood, and greater independence as you age. But it goes even further. Inflammation also affects your joints, making movement painful. If moving hurts, you move less. And if you move less, you lose more muscle. This is the vicious cycle many seniors find themselves trapped in. Anti-inflammatory foods break that cycle. Quinoa helps calm inflammation in both muscles and joints, making it easier to stay active, which then preserves and builds more muscle. It's a chain reaction that works in your favor instead of against you. So the real question becomes this: if muscle loss is fueled by chronic inflammation, why wouldn't you use every tool possible to reduce it? And if there's a food that delivers complete protein, essential minerals, and powerful anti-inflammatory compounds all at once, doesn't it make sense to make that food a regular part of your diet? That's the hidden advantage of quinoa. It's not just feeding your muscles, it's fighting the very process that tears them down. One of the biggest misconceptions about aging is that muscle loss is inevitable and irreversible. People over 60 often assume that no matter what they do, their muscles will continue to waste away. But here's the hook: your body has the ability to rebuild muscle at any age, provided you give it two things: the right nutrition and the right stimulus. We've already covered how critical nutrition is, but there's another piece of the puzzle that's just as essential: strength training. Without it, even the best diet won't reach its full potential. Here's why this matters so much. Muscle tissue is incredibly adaptive. When you place stress on it through lifting, pushing, pulling, or even resistance from your own body weight, it responds by repairing itself stronger than before. But if you don't give it that stimulus, your muscles get a signal that they're no longer needed, and the body lets them wither away. This principle is called who's it or lose it, and it's never more true than with muscle. So, while quinoa provides the building blocks and reduces inflammation, strength training is what tells your body we need more muscle. Don't let it go. Now, many seniors shy away from strength training because they believe it's dangerous or too intense. But here's the reality: strength training doesn't have to mean lifting heavy barbells in a gym. It can be as simple as bodyweight exercises like squats, push-ups against a wall, or using resistance bands. The point isn't how much weight you lift, it's about creating enough resistance to send the right signal to your muscles. If you're feeding your body amino acids from quinoa and other high-quality proteins, but you're not engaging those muscles, the body has no reason to direct those nutrients toward growth. Instead, it diverts them elsewhere. Here's a powerful hook: exercise isn't just mechanical, it's biochemical. When you challenge your muscles, you actually release growth signals like IGF-1 and activate pathways like mTOR, which drive protein synthesis. These signals are like a green light for your body to use the amino acids in your bloodstream to build new muscle fibers. Without these signals, those amino acids can easily be used for energy or stored, instead of going to your muscles. So strength training acts like a magnet, pulling those nutrients directly into your muscle tissue. Let's take an example. Imagine two people, both over 60. They both eat a diet rich in protein, including quinoa. Now, one of them sits most of the day and avoids physical activity because of fear of injury or fatigue. The other engages in simple strength training 3 times a week: resistance bands, light weights, even chair squats. The difference between these two people over time is night and day. The sedentary individual continues to lose muscle, becomes weaker, and struggles with mobility. The active one, however, signals the body to preserve and even build muscle, enjoys better balance, and maintains independence far longer. The same food provides dramatically different outcomes, depending on whether strength training is part of the picture. Now, here's something that may surprise you. Strength training doesn't just build muscle. It improves digestion and nutrient uptake as well. When you contract your muscles under resistance, you actually increase blood flow to the digestive organs and improve insulin sensitivity. That means the amino acids and glucose from quinoa are more effectively absorbed and delivered into your muscle cells. So exercise amplifies the nutritional benefits. It's not just about burning calories, it's about making the nutrients you eat work harder for you. Another hook worth noting is the impact on bone health. As you age, your risk of osteoporosis climbs and fractures can be devastating. But strength training strengthens not just muscles, but bones too. When you apply resistance, you're stimulating your bones to become denser and stronger. Combine this with the magnesium, calcium, and complete protein in quinoa, and you have a powerful strategy to protect both muscle and bones simultaneously. That's why people who combine nutrition with strength training age so much more gracefully than those who rely on food alone. Let's also talk about hormones, because this is a major factor in sarcopenia. As you age, levels of anabolic hormones like testosterone and growth hormone decline. These hormones are essential for muscle repair and growth. But here's the hook: strength training naturally boosts these hormones even in older adults. Studies have shown that resistance exercise increases growth hormone and testosterone levels, which further enhances the ability to build muscle. That means when you pair quinoa with its amino acid-rich profile with strength training, you're not only giving the body raw materials, you're also turning up the hormonal machinery that uses those materials to build muscle. And there's more. Strength training reduces inflammation, which we've already seen is a major driver of muscle loss. When you train your muscles, your body produces anti-inflammatory compounds called myokines. These are released by your muscle fibers during contraction, and they travel throughout your body, reducing systemic inflammation. So that means exercise and anti-inflammatory foods like quinoa are a double punch against the very process that breaks down muscle. Here's a practical way to visualize it. Imagine you just finished a simple strength workout, maybe 15 minutes of resistance band exercises. Your muscles are now primed, demanding nutrients to repair themselves. Within the next few hours, you eat a meal that includes quinoa. The amino acids and minerals from that quinoa are pulled directly into your recovering muscle fibers, where they're used to rebuild and strengthen them. This synergy creates results that neither exercise nor diet alone could achieve. Without the workout, the quinoa is just food. Without the quinoa, the workout doesn't have the raw materials it needs. But together, they create growth. Many seniors worry they're too old to start. But research shows that even individuals in their 80s and 90s can gain strength and muscle mass with resistance training when combined with proper nutrition. Think about how empowering that is. No matter your age, your body can adapt. You're not stuck with frailty. You're not doomed to lose muscle. You can actually reverse the process, but only if you combine these two strategies. And here's a hook to really drive it home. Think of your body like a construction site. Quinoa provides the bricks and mortar, the amino acids, minerals, and anti-inflammatory compounds. But strength training provides the construction workers. Without the workers, the bricks just sit there in piles unused. Without the bricks, the workers have nothing to build with. But when you bring both together, the site comes alive. New muscle fibers are laid down, old ones are repaired, and the structure becomes stronger and more resilient. So the secret is not one or the other. It's the synergy between the two. Strength training wakes up your muscles, primes your hormones, reduces inflammation, and creates demand. Quinoa supplies the building blocks, supports digestion, fights inflammation, and ensures your muscles get exactly what they need. Together, they form a partnership that can transform how you age, how strong you feel, and how independent you remain well into your later years.